Hey, today we're going to talk about pronoun agreement. And we talked about subject, verb agreement, and logical agreement last time, and you'll see some similarities in there. So let's just dive in. With pronoun agreement, it is also a matching game. So that's one of the nice things, that it's similar in that way. The only kind of technical thing you need to know at this point, there's one other thing we're going to cover, is that pronouns have to match with their antecedents. And the only thing an antecedent is the noun the pronoun refers to. So the man took his lunch, his refers to man, and ate it at the park, enjoying its fresh air. Of course, we wouldn't say the man took its lunch and ate it at the park, enjoying his fresh air. Doesn't make sense. So we've got to make sure these things match. Now, we're going to do some practice as always. What would you answer? Which one would be correct? The doctor started his rounds. The doctor started her rounds. The doctor started their rounds. Now, it's not hard to figure out, but it depends on if you know the doctor is a man or a woman. If you know the doctor is a man or a woman, then his rounds or her rounds would be appropriate. But if you don't, you might default to the doctor started his or her rounds. And this is appropriate. Do not, in your formal writing, use the slash. His slash her, she slash him, or he. Don't use that. That's not, make it longer. This is tip number 1 on how to make your paper longer. Spell out those little words. But the problem with this is it becomes very cumbersome. So if we say the doctor started his or her rounds, she or he thought that, his or her patients, I mean, that just becomes very, very cumbersome talking about one. So one of the solutions is, of course, to say if it's doctors started their rounds, but if it's not doctors, that's still not a solution. We can say the doctor started their rounds. Now, I got to talk a little bit about how language changes. Think about Shakespearean English, or like those old dead guy poems that you may had to have read in high school English. Was that like English? Was it like real our English? It's not to me. I mean, I appreciate Shakespeare. I really do. I mean, I see the greatness of Shakespeare and all of that. But meanwhile, I read science fiction. When I go home, when I turn off this computer at night, I'm not reading Shakespeare. I'm not reading old poetry. I'm reading Shoot 'em Up in Space. So that's where I'm on that. And I don't think one is any better than the other. I think there are better stories and better books and better movies and everything like that. But each of those genres have their own place. So if we think about Shakespeare, though, we can think about how it really has changed. I mean, just try to read some Shakespeare, and it's like, that is not the way we speak today. That's only 400 years. That is not that long in language creation. And so our language changes too. In the 1920s, people said, hey, there is plural. It means more than one person. So if you're going to say the doctor started their rounds, that is incorrect. Do not do that. But before that, there was fine as a singular pronoun. It was okay to say the doctor started their rounds if you didn't know male or female. Of course, before that, there weren't very many female doctors. Nevertheless, it was still okay to say there if that's what you, if in place of that, his or her. And it has become okay again. And it doesn't become okay because, like, the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times say it's okay, or the dictionary editing boards say it's okay. They do that, and they have recently done that. But they only do that because they look at language. They are just reporting on, especially dictionaries. Dictionaries don't make up words and say, now you people use them this way. No, they're saying, hey, here are words people are using, or here's this word that used to mean this, and now we use it to mean that. So this is one of the things that's changing in language. So I'm okay with singular there. I'm okay with you saying the doctor started their rounds and you just mean one person. But don't sub that in. 2 times you shouldn't do it. One is if you're writing for someone who's really old school, and you'll generally know those people whenever you encounter them. So if you're writing for somebody who's really old school, you will know they're sticklers for the rules, and the rule is there equals many people, and if you've got a doctor, one person, they're not going to work together. So you need to do he or she him or her, and it does sound more formal, but it's also cumbersome. It doesn't lead your reader to smooth reading, and what you want is you want your reader to get what's in your head, what's in your heart, and not be bogged down by these kind of repetitive phrasings. So he or she, him or her, does not make it better. You can just go with the there. But the other thing is if there are other options, use those. So we'll look at some things that show us those. So we are okay with the doctor started their rounds. There is a really cool link if you want to read it. And all of these slideshows are on kelli.ninja on the grammar page. And these are the slideshows. And then I also have a couple of links to they, there is singular pronoun. Some things like that. So if you share word nerdiness with me, you might want to check it out. All right, what about this one? This is similar. When a person has been drinking, they are more likely to speed. It is a person. We did say we could use they. We could go very formal person. He or she is more likely to speed. We could say he is more likely to speed, she is more likely to speed, but do we want to blame it on one gender or another? Really, the better option here than going with the they is to actually just change person to people, because that's really what we mean. We don't mean just one person speeding. We mean when people in general have been drinking. I always say that wrong. They are more likely to speed. I just don't want to change the sentence to when people have been speeding, they are more likely to drink, though there is some truth in that. But the easier option, and the one that just avoids that, is to actually make this plural so that they do match. So that's the lesson, is if you can keep them matching, by all means do. If you can't, then if you just don't know the gender of someone, then they or their is acceptable. A quick note on some of these indefinite pronouns that really kind of can work one way or the other. I just want to show you a couple of examples. These are the singular ones, and you can see body, one, thing. I always remember that's, just one. Each is one we'll talk about in a minute. Everybody, technically, you're writing for the old school grammar person. Everybody should bring his or her essay in when it's due. So we've got everybody, that's one person. So his or her, that's just one. Everybody should bring their essays in when it's due is also correct under our new school rules. But again, remember who you're writing for. I'm okay with it. Other people may not be. Nobody likes his feelings hurt. Nobody likes their feelings hurt. Here we could say nobody likes his feelings hurt. Nobody likes her feelings hurt. But if we go with their, it's much more, really, what are we saying? We're saying nobody, people in general. So it doesn't matter male, female, gender, sex, that's not an issue. So here you can see that using that there makes a lot more sense. With collective nouns, here's a place where it can also get tricky. And it's not really that it's tricky. The thing is, with collective nouns, they work both ways. As a committee, a class, a cast, a team, a group, whoever you have, if you have a group of people that do things both as a group, and then, of course, that group people also do things individually, you just have to decide, are they working as a group or are they working individually? In the quiz, there's a question about the cast. So you've got to think about the cast of a play. Are they working on doing something they all do together, or that they all do as individuals? So check this out. The committee made, would you say, its decision or their decision? Is the decision individual, so their decisions, which that would technically be, or is it as a group? And here it's pretty easy to kind of think about it. The committee made its decision. And I always like to imagine, anything we've written on a piece of paper, they'd write the decision on a piece of paper. The Declaration of Independence is a piece of paper, and that is written on one. Founding Fathers wrote that, but it's one piece of writing. Think about this with that same thing. The committee put its signature on the proclamation or their signatures on the proclamation. Well, if we go back to that Declaration of Independence, or even that proclamation, we can imagine, here they have written out the proclamation, and then each individual puts their signatures on it. And so I always make sure and do that kind of visualization whenever I'm thinking about any kind of collective noun, whether it's a committee, a class, a group, the team, whatever it is are they doing this as one thing? So I imagine the Declaration of Independence. It's written out, there it is, and then that's the group's decision, its declaration, versus I also see that John Hancock, Ben Franklin, I see those signatures on there, and so I know it's their signatures. So that's really the only way, or the only kind of issue there is just picture what's happening. Is it one thing that they do as a group, or is it individual things that everybody in the group happen to also do the same thing? All right. A couple of things. Now, these are some things. Let me come back to the camera here, because these are some things I'm just going to tell you don't do it. It's a convention in formal writing. I'm not going to tell you don't say it. It says. What's it? Things like that. These next couple of things are really things about just really just conventions in formal writing. Don't say it says. It doesn't say something, somebody, somewhere wrote it. So when we say it says, we're basically calling a person an it, which is hugely, it's like one of the most insulting things we can say to somebody. But the other thing too is that it also knocks down our credibility. If I just say it says, there is a constant in terms of relativity, that's vague. If I say Einstein said, there's a constant in terms of relativity, all of a sudden I sound smarter. So it's a couple of things. One is giving credit to who said it. And the other thing is your own credibility, that sound and that voice and that professionalism of respecting other people's work. And that's very key there. Now, that doesn't just have to be people. It may be organizations. If you go to the college website, there's a lot of words, and there's nobody that it says so-and-so wrote these words. I mean, there are some places where this is a letter from the president, or here's one from the vice president. There are a lot of other words. Nobody. So instead of saying it says, we would say El Paso Community College says. On their website, they point out. We're always keeping people at the center of the writing, and that's really key. So say it says all the time. I do, but when you write, don't write it says. Write they say, the author says, the writers point out, use their names. That's very important. If you have authors' names, whether it's organization or people, use those names. So just remember, no, it says. Now, we're going to get to the trickiest part of all of this, and that is subject-objective pronoun use. So here's one more little place of grammar technicalities, just to help you learn. This isn't on the test. Well, practicing these pronouns is, but the subject-object stuff is not. Subjects do the action. That's not a question on the test. Objects receive the action. That isn't either. John, he's the subject. He did it. He gave. He did something. And what? Gave the book to Mary. What'd Mary get? She got the book. So this is what you want to see here is it's easy to say John gave the book to Mary. But where we get confused is with I, me, and who, whom. And so I've got some tricks for you with both of them, and they make it a lot easier to see. Which one of these would you say is correct? The teacher told you and I to get out our books, or the teacher told you and me to get out our books? Here's the trick. If you take out the other person, because over here we had you and I, you and me, take out the other people just for your test, and let me ask you again. The teacher told I to get out my book. The teacher told me to get out my book. Boom. It's really easy to see that me is correct. And one of the things that happens is that subject-object thing becomes, especially for native speakers, if you're a non-native speaker, you may have to work at it a little more, but in my experience, 20 years of teaching college students, I know that even for non-native speakers, you often hear this a lot. When we take out that other person, we can hear it much, much better. Did you say at first that this would be the correct option? Because, as many of us do, it sounds more formal. This is English class. We should probably be using that. Yeah, that's what a lot of people do in making this decision. Well, you don't have to do it anymore. All you've got to do is take out the other people. So let's try it again. The teacher told me to get out my book. The teacher told you and me to get out our book. So, yeah, there's okay. Wait, hold on. Now we'll try it again. Ready? All right. Marissa and I are going to get some coffee. Marissa and me are going to get some coffee. So we're going to take out Marissa for just a moment. We'll bring her back. Would we say I am going to get coffee or me am going to get coffee? Well, that's easy peasy lemon squeezy. I am going to get some coffee. So we would have Marissa and I are going, because now we've got to match those verbs, right, are going to get some coffee. And so if you take out those other people, it helps a lot. Here's the same thing with he and him. But this is kind of a tricky sentence. Manny is as nice as he. Manny is as nice as him. Now, technically, we would actually put another word here. Can you guess what that is? Manny is as nice as he is. This is, even without the one over there, means Manny equals he or him, right, whichever one, because they're the same in niceness. So this is like our equals. So would we say, if we flipped this around, since it's equals, 2 plus 2 equals 4, but 4 also equals 2 plus 2, would we say him is as nice as Manny, or he is as nice as Manny? Does it sound better to say Manny is as nice as he is, or Manny is as nice as him is? No, in both cases, we can see what it is the he. So if you're not sure about that, you can reconstruct or reword any kind of is sentence where you're saying things are equal to things. The same thing applies to we and us. We gave it to her and she gave it to us. Either way, so we've got that subject object. So those same rules will, of course, apply. And once in a while this gets confused, but generally it's pretty right. Now, here comes the big one. Who and whom? Which of these questions, with these questions, you can do, there's a trick. So the trick is, let's answer it. So anytime you have a question and you're not sure, should I use who or whom, just say the answer. Who did she say was teaching the class? Whom did she say was teaching the class? Now, we've got to answer it with he or him. So would you say he was teaching the class or him? Now, here's the thing. Remember, whom and him both end with M. So if you can substitute him, use whom. Just remember, it's the M things. So we're just looking for those matching M's. Here we go. She said him was teaching the class. No, that doesn't work. She said he was teaching the class. Look, no M. So that is going to be who. Who did she say was teaching the class? Let's try it again, because this one takes practice. Again, remember questions, answer them. Who should I talk to? Whom should I talk to? I should talk to he? Oh no, I should talk to him. And him and whom both have the M, so we're going to go with whom should I talk to? Jim is the one. Now here's one that's not a question. So here we're just going to really kind of look at parts of the sentence. Jim is the one who told me, or Jim is the one whom told me. Now here, Jim is the one is really our kind of main sentence. This who told me is really telling us about Jim, right? It's a describer. Got to have it, because otherwise we're just like Jim is the one what, right? So Jim is the one. And who does this refer to? This doesn't refer to anybody else. This refers to Jim. So would we say Jim is the one he told me, or Jim is the one him told me? We'd say Jim is the one he told me. And so in this case, no M, so we're going to go with who. So when you change it around, it won't always be smooth, but it does help you figure out the problem. Let's take a look real quick at just a few more, because when I started doing this, I thought, oh, great, here's this trick. I'll be wonderful at it. I'll never have to screw this up again. And then I just stared at it and went, huh? And what I learned, just like with math that I stared at and said, huh, is you've got to practice. This is at grammarbook.com, which is a great place for, of course, grammar rules, but also taking little quizzes just to kind of see. We'll just go through a couple of these because practicing it is the only way you get better. At first it didn't work for me. The more I practiced it, the more it made sense. You'll be shocked. Oh wait, hold on. Let's get rid of the answers. You already know that one. You'll be shocked when I tell you who called me last night is correct, because you'll be shocked when I tell you, would we say him called me? No, we'd say he called me. So that one would be the correct one. Here, remember, we've got a question, so all we have to do is answer it. Who or whom should I ask to the dance? I should ask he. I should ask him to the dance. And there we go. We've just figured it out because we matched the M's. This one is kind of tricky. The doctor who you recommended is not available for 3 months, or the doctor whom you recommended. Now, let's break this down to the basic sentence, okay? The doctor is not available for 3 months. This, of course, again, tells us which one, just like that student who made an A and the book Ready Player One amidst a list of books. Who you recommended is not available for 3 months. So, what do we do with this? The doctor, you recommended him, or you recommended he? No, wait, you recommended him is not available for 3 months. In that case, again, sometimes we have to, like the Manny example, flip them around so that we can look and see which way it works. A couple more. Cedric hasn't decided whom should be appointed or who. Cedric hasn't decided, would we say him should be appointed yet, or he should be appointed yet? Here, he, because him doesn't make sense. I'm looking for an assistant on whom I can depend. I'm looking for an assistant, and here we can flip it around. I can depend on he? No, him. So the key thing with that is that that really does take practice. So it's a trick and it does work, but you got to practice it. So when you're writing and you're like who, whom, don't just put whom because you're doing formal writing and it sounds fancy and you put your pinky in the air. No, that shit doesn't work. Whenever you're writing and you come to that, do that little construction with sentences and ask yourself what goes here, and check it out on Grammarly. Use your grammar check. Read those tips and hints that it has with it so that it makes more sense, because the more you do it, the quicker you'll be able to go through this. Like I said, slow and careful practice ends up making you more efficient and more secure and more confident in your own writing, and therefore in yourself. So I guess that's about it. You have questions, you want to throw trick, who, whom, things at me, then let me know. Call, email, call me maybe. And otherwise, learn those rules like a pro and break them like an artist.